I kind of blame the administrators at Ole Miss for allowing themselves to be put in this situation, because that's really what it comes down to.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the iCoaches Podcast, the authentic voice of sports leadership where coaching wisdom meets real talk. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Adams. On today's Throwdown Thursday edition, we're going to break down the College Football Playoff Semifinals. It's the dawn of a new day. In segment 2, we're going to talk about Dan Lanning's war on the College Football Playoff calendar. And in segment 3, we're going to talk about Florida State trying to use an NFL-style blueprint to revitalize their program. Joining us today, Captain for Life Will Cotton, academic and athletic consultant of the CKSA Project, George Ockert, and our favorite administrator, Robert Abney's here. Gentlemen, it's a new day. Yes, it is. Random wrestling reference. Thursday, January 8th, in the Vrbo Fiesta Bowl, Miami versus Ole Miss. George, 1, get Michael Irvin off the TV, please. And 2, what are you thinking about Miami Ole Miss? Give me the breakdown from the football coach.
I got it. We can't take Michael Irvin off of the TV. He is the most entertaining thing to watch the entire time. To see him stretch on the sidelines, to see him go crazy, to pull the belt off and all that, it's worth the money. It's TV. It's TV. Big thing with me is going to be, especially with this game, how does Ole Miss handle Miami's defense? I think the biggest thing for everybody coming in that had any doubts, I'm talking all you Notre Dame fans out there, had any doubts about whether Miami should be there or not or anything like that, their defense has just been showing up night in and night out. Their front line, those two guys, and even the tackles might be the best in college football right now. Bain is unblockable. So it's really going to come down to how Ole Miss stops the rush, and keeps their quarterback upright, who did a damn good job against Georgia playing Houdini ball. But again, that's somebody that they've seen. They were used to him. And Ole Miss is a good team. And, can Ole Miss's defense make Carson Beck, make some mistakes? Because he hasn't here lately. And they got a great recipe right now because they're playing great defense and offense is not hurting itself. So we'll see how long this run lasts. But Miami, I think we had beginning of the year we had all talked about Miami is the real deal, and they are a formidable team right now. It's going to be, outside of Indiana, they've been the most impressive team we've watched.
All right. So, Robert, I'm going to come to you because Ole Miss got a problem. Who's coaching? They've got a head coach that they made permanent, but this is a weird situation. This is like insider trading, like right in front of everybody. How does Ole Miss even handle this game? Talk to me, sir.
This is what happens in this, in today's landscape, right? This is what happens. I don't necessarily blame Lane Kiffin for saying, hey, boys, it's time for us to get to work. I don't blame him for that. I kind of blame the administrators at Ole Miss for allowing themselves to be put in this situation, because that's really what it comes down to. They could have better addressed this situation way before this. They could have cut Lane Kiffin loose a long time before he actually made the decision. They could have said, hey, are you going somewhere else? You have until this day and time to tell us. If you don't, we're going to assume that you're gone and we're going to plan accordingly. So I don't really know how Ole Miss handles this. Basically you do the best you can. You plug guys in. If coach is bringing guys in, if coach is bringing guys in to work, then bring them into work. And all you can do is just patch it together the best you can. all of that being said, I really liked how Ole Miss played against Georgia. I think that they just handled that game incredibly well. I mean, Georgia is the only team I felt like that lost, that had a bye, that played like they were ready to play, right? They're the only ones that had, let's set Indiana aside because that's a whole different thing, but they're the only team that looked like they were ready to play, and they brought them. I'll be interested to see, and when it comes to Miami and Ole Miss, I'll be very interested to see. One of the games that Miami really struggled in this year is when they had to travel, right? When they had to go to Dallas. They have to go to Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't remember, that's either 2 or 3 time zones. And that's going to mess, and they're not used to traveling. That could be an interesting impact on that game. So I don't. Back to the Ole Miss deal. I mean, it's not a good situation for them, and who knows? Maybe this week it finally affects them and they lay an egg, and Miami basically has a clear path. But we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Cotton Man, I'm coming to you because you and I talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only. We had pause on Miami and Ole Miss. It's hard. Coaching's hard to begin with, and coaching plans and game plans, they're meticulous. And you got guys with differing thoughts and ideas, and are we evaluating Ole Miss players for LSU and all kinds of things. So strictly for entertainment purposes only. Notice I'm sticking with Will with that. Who you got in the game, Will?
Man, to me, Miami has a great team. I mean, they have a full roster of NFL players, but so does Ole Miss. And let's remember, if Lane Kiffin was on the sideline, people would have a lot different thing about how we would look at this game. A lot of people would say, like, oh, Ole Miss is blowing them out the water, I think one thing that Ole Miss is one thing that they have is that they're rallying on him leaving. I think they're all like, man, screw Lane Kiffin. We're all in. Show up to your meetings, practices. We're 100. Stay healthy. Don't go out and get in trouble. No drinking. I think that team is so focused to get ready to laugh at him, to say you left us and we went out and won a national championship. We did it without you. How much that would sting, especially if he would never win at LSU or lose to Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is playing for something more than I think they're praying for pride. I think they're praying to shut him up too. I think a lot of them are upset about what happened, and I don't know if Miami can overcome or bring that energy with them. A guy that's like, look, I'm all in for my brother, man. I'm on the same line. Brothers share pain, brother. You know what it is. It's what it is. So I'd like Ole Miss to at least cover. I don't know I don't know what the spread is exactly, but I would like Ole Miss to be on the spread. And I think Indiana is just beating people up.
We're not there for Indiana yet, sir.
Won't get there, but Ole Miss. But I like Ole Miss. They have great players. They have NFL type players. They've been
Ole Miss is
well.
plus 3.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would take Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss to cover, man. Like you said, Miami's going out west. Ole Miss will travel further with it. They're the happiest they've been in decades. So I know they're traveling, and I know they ain't got nothing else doing. They ain't Ole Miss.
All right.
Wait, I guarantee I would go as far to say, since we were talking about this Lane Kiffin situation, and I thought it was very interesting because Lane's fought so hard to continue to coach this team through the playoff, but they told him no. I'm gonna go out on. I think Lane Kiffin put the game plan together against Georgia. Do you really think all his coaches are there and he's not in contact with them?
Well, there was a report that some of the players was upset that he was trying to take his shine, and I need Lane Kiffin's agent because every win is dollars for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
So,
so I think that Georgia game he put that game plan together. Now I think that because I know he was in contact with the coaches, knowing how football coaches are. But I'm gonna tell you right now, since now he's telling them y'all got to go. He's cut himself off together already now. So going in
okay.
this
All right. And then Friday, January 9th, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Oregon versus Indiana. Robert, I'm coming to you. So I'm going to throw the Coach Adams piece at you. Oregon lost at home to Indiana, and they got another shot at them. What are you thinking? Because what Indiana did to Alabama was criminal against the law in 35 states and 2 commonwealths and territories. It was an incredible butt whooping that I didn't see coming because I'm still looking at the name and I'm wrong. So I put in the group chat, I'm watching Flair Sting Clash 1 because I got to start believing in these people because I'm not doing a good job of it. Talk to me about your thoughts on this game.
Well, what I don't think we'll see is what happened last year when we had a rematch between Ohio State and Indiana. I don't think we're going to see where, Ohio State came in and just absolutely beat the brakes off of Oregon. That's not going to happen. I feel like, I just feel like, Indiana, the way they played, the way their offensive line played, and Oregon's defense played really well against Texas Tech. They played really well against Texas Tech. I don't think they can do that again against Indiana. I think Indiana is going to kind of do the same thing. They'll come in with the same kind of game plan. They want to run the ball. And, I think they will handle Oregon. I'm not going to say that it's, they're going to beat them 38-3 or anything like that, but I think they will handle Oregon and move on to the national championship fairly easily.
George, I'm gonna come to you. You've heard me my whole life say boring wins more than loses. I'm screaming in the group chat about all this go for it on 4th down, analytic. I'm not smart, but Indiana punched Alabama in the face and kept punching them in the face. And they kept handing the ball off again 2, 3, 4, 5 at a clip. You're a football guy. What are you thinking? Oregon gets the rematch they wanted, and Indiana just looked so indifferent. It was amazing watching the level of who cares. We're just better than you that I saw. So tell me, what are you thinking about Oregon, Indiana?
What's funny is I watched Ryan Clark and them on TV, and Ryan Clark he started off by saying because the panel was a bunch of SEC guys. We're not the top of the mountain anymore. He said y'all might as well get used to it. It isn't SEC teams anymore. It ain't just the Alabamas, LSU's, and the Georgias out here because Indiana literally beat them up. That was just a mauling. Um, I feel like going into this game, Oregon's more of a speed. We're gonna misdirection kind of offense. The way they do things. Indiana's old school. I'm gonna hit you in the mouth, and I'm gonna keep hitting you in the mouth. And yeah, it's a good thing to know your opponent because you've played them before. But sometimes teams get in that mindset of, I don't care what you do, we're going to impose our will on you. And I kind of see that happening again because I don't know like Robert said, as good as Oregon's defense looked against Texas Tech. And I think that was a whole nother thing. Texas Tech said, and they've never been on that stage before. This is all because Texas Tech defense showed up. They were for real.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen against Indiana. Indiana got their comeuppance last year. They first time on that stage and whatever, and they know what it's about now. They're gonna bludgeon Oregon. And my question is Oregon ready for the bludgeoning that they're getting ready to take? And strictly for entertainment purposes, if I got to go put money on it, I'm going with Big Red at this point in time. I'm going with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon's. I mean, Texas Tech's defense played really well,
Yeah.
and I mean, did Oregon? Both of their touchdowns came off short fields, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana's not going to turn the ball over 4 times.
Right.
They're not going to do that.
And then you got a quarterback that doesn't. They got Indiana as a quarterback that doesn't take a lot of risk, and he doesn't need to, because when it gets down to it, when we get to about 3rd and 7, I'm just going to hand it off, and we're going to punch you in the mouth and see what you're going to do about it. So it's you got to withstand that beating, like Ali said against that Frazier fight. I'm just not losing today. I'm gonna stand up, and I don't know if it's there. So,
All right. Well, strictly for entertainment purposes only, Indiana is -4. We spoke last week, and fans just got an insight of my team captain, and that's what he would have said in the locker room, and our guys would have been ready to go play. You're Indiana. The entire Rose Bowl was Indiana. They are so locked in. They're going to travel again. We said on the air last week, I'm not worried about Texas Tech's defense. I'm worried about them dudes. They ain't never seen no light before, and they folded like nobody's business. But Oregon, they're the 3rd-place team in the Big Ten. They've been looked over, passed over. Will they be in a position where they overlooked Texas Tech, and now they're all locked in? You're my captain, Will. What are you thinking about the game, Oregon, Indiana?
Man, Indiana is just beating people up. They're just, I don't know if Oregon wants to get in that physical contact, that physical confrontation, man. I mean, and I hate to say it, and I hate to be a historian about it, but I just don't believe in Oregon. Since I've been watching college football 10 years old, man, and I'll be 40 this year. I've never seen an Oregon team and be like, yeah, they're going to win. They're definitely going to win at the big stage. It just never happened. They've had better teams. They've had the Chip Kelly era where
they've had Heisman winners.
Yeah, they have Heisman winners. They've had all kinds of stuff, and they just can't get, and when I watch Indiana, I just see a team that's just locked in. They're just beating people up. I haven't seen Alabama get beat up like that in a while. I was just like, good. Ohio State getting beat up. These dudes are serious right now, and I don't see that same chip on the shoulder, because I feel like Indiana, even though they're the number 1 seed, they're still getting looked down on. I know there's a lot of people who are saying like, oh yeah, Alabama's going to take care of them. Oh, when they run into Ohio State, oh yeah, they ain't gonna win the Big Ten. Oh, when they run, I think they'd be like, they're upset. They're upset, and they're the favorite, but people aren't saying that, and they're hurting people. And like George says, they're gonna get ran the ball all day. I don't know if Oregon really wants that. They want you to get in that passing attack back and forth thing. Nah, this is only thing that saves them is it's not going to be outside.
Historically, Oregon does not fare well against physical teams, and we have seen that time and time again in the varying, reincarnations of the CFP, BCS, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and to add to that, Will Cotton had a high school coach that said, football west of the Mississippi, man, y'all ain't hit nobody.
Yeah, nobody.
All right.
It's interesting, real quick. It's interesting that you look at both games are kind of mirror images of each other, because Miami been run down your throat because there weren't a whole. Miami hasn't been hauling off a bunch of big plays. They ran the ball right down what's called his throat and played great defense. And Indiana's doing the same. And we got 2 dynamic quarterbacks in Ole Miss and Oregon. When it comes to that, historically, I'm gonna take the teams there to run it down your throat and play great defense before I take all the pretty finesse teams that I'm do Houdini tricks, and the quarterback's going to do a bunch of Houdini tricks and make a bunch of big plays. So,
George, last thing for me as we close this segment, I'm not a crystal ball guy. I've just seen him wet the bed like time and again with good talent. So tell me why I'm wrong in saying I don't trust that guy, and give me the underdog with no staff and a whole bunch of pissed off players. Uh, because Indiana has shut me up. So I'm good. Good luck with them. So tell me and tell our audience, because I'm sure there's other people like me that says every year Miami stinks when they're supposed to be good. Just when you think it's supposed to happen, they lay an egg. So talk to me as we close the segment.
Number 3 and number 4, the best two defensive ends in the damn game. You can't stop Bane. There is no stopping him. Okay, if you didn't watch last game, he physically imposed himself last game, and that was happening from a week to week basis. A lot of Miami's losses, like the SMU loss and stuff, came. The offense didn't play well, and Beck did something stupid. So, or they fumbled at a certain time. That defense is for real. And we're going to see that come draft day when both those two kids are probably going to go in the top 10 right off the board. They are for real. They're imposing forces. I mean, so I believe in them because if you want to believe in them, you believe in them because of that defensive line, because they're unblockable right now. So,
all right, I can take that. All right, so when we get back in segment 2, we're going to talk about the college football calendar, because the transfer portal is wide open and everybody is fit to be tied. We'll be right back on the iCoaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Adams here. And for over 30 years, I've dedicated my life to helping student athletes succeed, not just on the fields and the courts, but in the classroom and beyond. And that's why I founded the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project understands that finding the balance between academics and athletics is crucial for long-term success. That's why the CKA Save Project offers a range of programs, including personalized consulting, mentorship, and coming in 2027, our innovative Gap Year Basketball Academy, designed to assist both young men and women reach their full potential both on and off the court. I'm incredibly excited to announce that the CK Save Project is now partnering with the Cascade Sports Network. This partnership will allow us the opportunity to amplify our message and reach even more student athletes through the Odd Coaches Podcast and other exciting initiatives. Join the CKA Save Project and the Cascade Sports Network as we empower the next generation of student athletes. Visit CKA on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org to learn more. Let's work together to find the balance and help unlock your potential. Welcome back to the iCoaches Podcast in segment 2. We've got a December deadlock, kind of a weird situation with the college football calendar. And Dan Lanning, the coach at Oregon, had a couple of things. So he's advocating for a hard deadline of January 1st for the national championship game. So his plan involves starting the season at week 0, playing playoff games every consecutive weekend in December to eliminate the current dead weeks, because the layoff seems to have some type of issue with teams just losing. You also have situations like staff splitting, and Lane Kiffin's situation has caused a lot of issues. The portal opened this past week, so teams are playing in the playoffs, yet even Coach Kurt Cignetti talked about hosting people in the portal. This is really like, wow, why are we doing this? In addition, they're upset with the NFL situation of why are we gifting the NFL Saturdays after the season? So, George, I'm going to come to you first. You've dealt with a lot of college football players in your career. What do you think about Dan Lanning's proposal in terms of moving everything to week 0 and just playing week after week after week? In addition, what are your thoughts on holding most of the games on college sites as opposed to the bowl game piece? I know you have some thoughts. Here's your platform, sir.
Yeah, I'm for the most part, I'm in agreement with it. They do need to push it up. I think it runs too long because then it causes problems right now. The way college football set up right now, they like to get their players in early in that January window. Okay. And the way the portal coming so late has screwed recruiting up and everything. They need and they need some formative rules to deal with this because that could also put the money people on a schedule too. Because right now it's all over the place. And when I say money people, that's with these big NIL deals, any of these kids that are still looking for places to go. One of my best friends now is he's on his second trip with his son. I think they're flying out to Akron today because he's in the portal right now. So this would eliminate all of that. It'll be done by January 1. Everybody will be taken care of. All the bowl games, you'll see less guys not playing because either they're going to make the decision to go in the portal or not. The portal thing will be taken care of, and the coach's situation will be taken care of. Right now, Ole Miss is absolute chaos right now. And you got kids that are going to making decisions on, and we had this debate before about is a kid signing to a school because it's a school or because of the program? And as soon as you lose the coach, that changes the whole dynamic for a kid. So you're going to eliminate a whole lot of these things, and that's the thing that I think that will help with getting some of this stuff under control, because that it'll be taken out of play, and the calendar will be set. So yeah, I agree with a whole lot of what he's doing, and people need to understand it's a trickle down situation too. Division ones are going to do something, and it also your signing window. You go down. Your signing window for high school kids is in February, but not the early one, but the late one. You as a high school kid, you can wait and it helps colleges out. If they plug the hole, then the scholarship that they gave to this kid is not going to be is gone. So now you can start recruiting for real as the college coach because you can say I'm gonna plug this hole I got right now with out of the transfer portal, but I can look to find somebody I can develop out of high school, and we're all clear because it's already taken care of. It's so wide open right now that it affects everything. So with pushing it up. I'm in agreement. Just have it all done like we used to. Have everybody play on January 1st and be done and over.
All right. So, Robert, I'm going to come to you. You're going to scold me, I know, but football is a first semester sport. First semester ends middle of December, and then school resumes middle of January. That's kind of how school's supposed to work. And we're pushed football in the second semester. When you see all of these things, now I feel better. I got it out. Tell me your thoughts on how the calendar should work, Dan Lanning's suggestions. What are you thinking, sir?
First of all, y'all are forgetting two things that factor into this whole calendar thing. Number one is the Army-Navy game. CBS paid for exclusivity on that weekend for the Army-Navy game until some ridiculous year like 2047 or something like that. So you notice that on the weekend of the Army-Navy game, what other games were there?
Nothing.
There were no other games. Okay. And you also have ESPN paying all that money for broadcast rights to all of the New Year's Bowl games with the understanding that they're going to be played when? On New Year's Day. So that's what you're up against. I agree in concept with what you're saying. You know, the semester ends in December, spring semester starts in January, you know, that's your portal time, move on. But that's not what the way of the world has created, right? And schools can figure out how to work their way around that whole semester thing. Because, you know, we have so many online courses, hybrid courses, all this stuff that starts late, starts early. And we also know that with the transfer portal, What has not accompanied a transfer portal has been academic requirements of said transfers. So I agree with what you're saying.
Oh, no.
Dan Lanning, as my old high school football coach used to say, Dan Lanning is pissing into the wind.
Oh, my God. All right. But at least I said it out loud. So, Will, I'm going to put your work hat on because Will does compliance. You're looking at the whole semester. You can come into school in the middle of August like you always have. I think it's like the last week of July. George could tell me. I think they come to camp last week of July, something like that. You got all of this time. And some people on news medias and sports shows have said, can we move the bowls to the beginning of the season? No, Robert told you very clearly the contract says this. So how would you do this calendar, Will? What do you think?
I think the calendar is fine. I think the calendar is fine. I don't have a problem with it. Now, there is a dead period that we can all talk about, but that's an opportunity. In my opinion, that should have been a play-in. That should have been a play-in week. Notre Dame versus BYU, Vanderbilt, and somebody else, whoever needs Alabama trying to get in. Get creative with it. Sometimes I feel like people overthink things, and they're like, "Well, what are we going to do and get rid of these days?" And I'm like, dude, why don't you just put in a play-in? We do it in the NCAA tournament. We have guys where, you're in 16-16, you're playing one before the tournament starts. Whoever wins, you're the 16 seed. Why don't trust me? Everyone would have done it. It would, and we all would have watched. We all would have bet. We all would have bought beers and find time to watch. And this,
yes, the ratings were high. Sorry, folks.
It'd have been crazy.
Whatever they told you on TV is wrong. People were watching Navy and Cincinnati.
Oh yeah,
and enjoying themselves.
Oh yeah, we'd have watched all that stuff. If you had, and they should have done that before the season. If you have two or four teams that are like, hey, we're kind of iffy on who's going to make the playoffs, and you already get to November and you're like, December, now we're kind of stuck. Boom, make them play the play-in. Notre Dame would have nothing to say. Like, all right, you play BYU, y'all win, y'all in. If y'all out, y'all out. It is what it is. I think they just do a lot of nothing, a big much ado about nothing. We want more football anyway. From a compliance standpoint, I guess you can shift. Everyone's going to be upset no matter how you operate. Somebody's going to have a problem with it. So just include more games. I mean, why not? These kids aren't amateurs. Remember, they're getting paid for it. So.
Keith, I think when I say move it up, move the schedule up, but don't put the bowl, because I heard some coaches talking about put the bowl games at the beginning of the year. Don't keep them at the end. Just don't have that dead period at the end, in the middle, where we're going with like 2 weeks without college football. And I know Robert's talking about that Army-Navy game, and that's still going to be important, but does it carry as much weight as it used to? I mean, it's still. I mean, but let them still play.
Their lawyers are better than yours.
I know they are, and I know there's so much money behind that, it's ridiculous. But a lot of this would be taken care of if you start the season at week 0, and we're not looking at January 18th having the national championship. Just push it up week 0. Take out that dead period where we get the, Duke Mayonnaise Bowl or Bahamas Bowl all by itself and nobody else is playing. Plus, that would solve that problem that we run into, that we saw this year, having that 3-week period where we got teams that are off and haven't played, and then come in and play the first round of the playoff. Because some of those teams looked horrible coming out. That had been sitting for damn near 3 weeks. So,
but hold on, Robert. I do have to ask you. The NFL has a very clear contract that says this is when you can do Saturday games, and college is you're never going to beat the NFL. I mean, believe me, you're never going to. So, how would you handle that piece? Because George makes sense. It's not like that doesn't make sense, but these existing deals, get in the way of, quote, common sense coming into play? Close us out, sir. How do you handle all of the minutia?
So who played? So yesterday was Saturday, correct? We're taping on Sunday. So who played? We had
Seattle,
49ers and the Seahawks at night. Great game. I mean, marquee matchup. Winner's the 1 seed. Okay. Not a great game. Not aesthetically. Let me rephrase that. Not an aesthetically pleasing game. 2 defenses beating the heck out of each other. Okay. The game before that was Tampa and Carolina
Played in a mud bowl.
playing in the mud and just really super ugly football. I understand the NFL, but at some point, college football has to just say, you know what? If we're going to fix what we're doing, we will. This is what we're going to have to do. And just put the games out there. And I don't know if ESPN is willing to do that because both of those games were on ESPN yesterday. And I don't know.
Well, remember, ESPN pawned off some of those games to TNT. So they got the money, and then they said, pay us for the rights.
They didn't play. They didn't play any of the. They did not play any of the college football playoff games on TNT though. All those.
Didn't they do?
No, they did not. They're all
They're all
ESPN/ABC. I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I will say. If the NCAA wants to find a way to fix this, and maybe they don't, which we all know is
That's Will Cotton.
which we all know is quite likely. They're like, oh, we're good. If they really want to find a way to fix it, then they will.
Yeah.
But I find it highly unlikely that they're interested in doing anything about the current schedule because the money's rolling in. And it's not even the NCAA in this case, it's the CFP.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
because they get no money from the college football playoffs. And that's why you're going to have 400 teams in the basketball tournament.
They're 60 years old, 70 years old, and they're like, I got to deal with the schedule. Oh, my gosh. Like,
put it in AI. All right. When we get back in segment 3, Florida State has a new GM, and they're on the road to fixing their problems. Maybe. We'll be right back on the Coaches Podcast.
Today's student athletes face pro-level challenges without pro-level support. The CKA SAVE project is here to change that. For 16 plus years, Dr. Keith Adams and his team have provided comprehensive academic and athletic support from middle school through post-graduation transitions. NIL guidance, transfer portal navigation, academic coaching, career planning, they've got it covered. The CKA SAVE project. When your future is on the line, experience matters. Learn more at www.ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast. In segment 3, we get to talk about the front office revolution. Florida State has not been at its best the last couple of seasons, so they're trying to do an NFL-style blueprint. And welcome back, John Garrett. So, John Garrett was the Florida State Director of Scouting during their stretch of being 23-4 over the 22-23 season. Then he went to Duke, built a roster that won an ACC championship, finding gems in the transfer portal. So unlike traditional recruiting coordinators, Garrett is the deputy AD/general manager. He reports directly to the AD, not just the head coach, aligning Florida State with the Oklahoma model of reporting to the AD rather than the Ohio State model of reporting to the head coach. So Garrett, he does roster construction. He does high school and portal strategy. He does scholarship allocation, and he centralizes NIL and analytics. Mike Norvell, as the head coach, does player development, game prep, and team culture. The goal is to stop the 7-17 slide and remove the administrative burden that has been going on with Coach Norvell. And they've got some wins. They've got some guys returning. So, George, again, you've dealt a lot with college football. How do you like what Florida State's doing? And more importantly, do you think it's going to resonate in victories next year in the vaunted ACC?
It's interesting because they went and did this, and they doing all this rebranding and thing they're doing, and but they kept the same coach. So yeah, he hit lightning in the bottle 1 year where they probably should have been in the CFP. Your quarterback breaks his leg and he doesn't get there. But ever since then, it's been a downhill slide with Norvell. So hey, you got to they're throwing things up against the wall and seeing if it can stick, because there's no reason for Florida State to be in the shape they're in with the program they have and where they are. And it makes things 10 times worse right now that Miami is in the CFP and winning. So that you're looking at, like, just with University of Florida, there's no reason for one of those schools or any of those schools to be underwater like this. So I understand what they're doing. Does it change? We'll see, because if it doesn't work this year, what excuse is Norvell going to have at that point in time? And you're going to have to go with a different coach. So I'm hopeful. I'm a Florida State fan. I was, had great athletes, great players there, but they've had great players in the last couple of years and still haven't been able to win. So I'm not as optimistic as I probably they want me to be right now, but we're going to see what happens. I mean, but there does need to be schools now, and Florida State should have had this under control, where they have some kind of management structure when it comes into dealing with players, NIL, and getting players in their recruitment and their development. And I'm glad that it's in place now. They're probably too late to the game, but we're going to see what happens. Hopefully it'll be something good, because one thing about the portal, you can always change your team in a season, because the portal will allow you to do that. So we'll see what happens.
All right, Robert, you have your administrator hat on. I showed you the blueprint, showed you the outline. Do you think, in your professional opinion, Florida State has a model that can work for Florida State and turn these losses into wins?
Sure. I mean, you can do anything as a model, right? And in the end, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want, but if your X's aren't bigger than their O's, doesn't matter.
It all still comes back to, can you get players and then have those players you come in play at a high level consistently for X amount of weeks over the course of the year? Will, you're my compliance guy. I showed you their model. You've seen a lot of different systems. What do you think about what they're installing in Florida State? Because you want them to be better too.
I like the framework. I mean, it looks good on paper. Like Robert says, if somebody came in with a plan and said, this is what I want to do in Florida State, it's like, okay, I like it. You have a plan. Okay. How much is it going to cost me? That's what I'm going to ask them. It's going to be a very expensive process. Florida State has the ability, and I would say the benefits of having to be able to do that. I mean, how many organizations in the country, and there's probably a couple that can just turn over the entire program from everything, AD, whole frameworks, this is how we're going to do stuff, and quietly, there's going to be a lot of kids that they're going to say, hey, we're not going to renew your scholarship either. That's part of the turnover. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to say it loudly, but it's going to happen. But from a framework standpoint, I think it works. It's obviously, if you're already talking about NIL negotiations and portal scouting, that's name of the game right now. The brand is still strong. Florida State's still good, especially in the state of Florida, where you're going to get a lot of players. It's just you got to put in the correct coach. You got to get the right leaders behind it. The AD needs to find a coach that aligns with their framework. If they don't, and they're always disagreeing and fighting back and forth, and this isn't the way, this ain't the West way, you're going to see the same thing that you see the last couple of years. I think Robert says, again, put the right people in. You have to put the framework in. It has to work together. You can't just say, okay, do this. You're not going to run like a run and gun team with a bunch of centers. you have to have the people in. You're going to have the right people in for the right thing. So
Yeah.
I think Norvell is going to lose his job at some point, and eventually they're going to bring in a guy who can run the framework that they want to do it, and it's just business. So
Yeah.
I do like the framework. Obviously, Florida State, I think they'll come back. They're a great brand, and we'll see what happens. But it depends on who they hire.
Robert, I do want to come to you with this. I'm very huge on alignment. And when you tell me that the AD reports to somebody and the coach reports to somebody, that piece kind of gives me pause because whose job is it? They clearly outline what Novell's doing, and they're clearly outlining what the GM's doing. But you've been a principal. That part gives me pause. Tell me if I'm crazy, or what are you thinking about that piece where I just don't see the synergy in terms of what they're doing? What do you think, sir?
No, exactly. And you and I have talked about this offline. And when you're in a school or when you're in an organization, you want to make sure all your arrows are pointing the same direction. Everybody's pulling the rope the same way. Everybody's rowing, all of those analogies. But you want everybody to be on the same page. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's working towards the same goals. Everybody is trying to get to the same place. And it's really hard to do that when you have people who are reporting, when you have different reporting points within the organization, when you have different focal points of leadership within the organization, because it's really hard to establish a culture. And it's really hard for, the people in leadership. Those people have to be aligned. And that's not always the case. So I see a situation like this. Yeah, that's something that would give me pause for sure. But again, in the end, you don't get players. You can have whatever model you want. It doesn't matter.
It always comes back to that. George, I want to close off with you because, again, when I was at Hood College, one of the reasons why it worked very well was because we had the weekly meeting. We talked recruiting. We had our big board. We talked about the schedules coming up. And it was a joint conversation so I can finish my head coach's sentences. We all had our directives. The AD was involved a lot of times. We talked to admissions. So we knew we didn't have to cash in favors. As I was saying to Robert, I looked at that model that they're trying to do, and they're doing it at a very high level. In your opinion, as somebody who's been that AD, are you confident in that, or it gives you pause? Close us out this week with Florida State's new way of doing it.
One thing that gives me pause, and you were talking about the synergy on who answers to who. Listen, if that general manager and that head coach aren't connected at the hip, they're going to be problems, because the coach is going to see things one way, and the general manager is going to see it another way on especially when you come to evaluating kids and where we think we need help and what we're going to be centered on. So they better be in lockstep, because if the general manager is going to be doing the talent acquisition piece, he better be in lockstep with the coach, because if not, the coach is going to get a team that he didn't even ask for. Back to your Bill Belichick analogy of you let me prepare the dinner, but you don't let me shop for the groceries. We got a whole week. That's a recipe for disaster right there. And because by his metric, he could think a kid's a dude, but the head coach doesn't think he's a dude because he's not fitting what we need to do. And that comes back to schematics about how you want to run the defense, what kind of offense you want to run, stuff like that. So they better be in lockstep right next to each other, because if they're not, we're going to have a problem. I mean, you look at, that happens on a regular basis. You look at how the Dallas Cowboys draft or the Oakland Raiders, it becomes a problem. So I hope everybody knows, everybody that's involved has a clear vision on what they want, an agreement on what they want, who they're looking for, and where they need help. Because if they don't, it's going to be a big problem.
All right. So before we close out this week's episode, I have some major news to share about the Odd Coaches podcast. We're not just a podcast anymore. We're evolving into the global authority on coaching leadership. To get us there, we are officially launching the OCP Global Access Initiative. And here's what that means. It means we're going after media credentials. We want to be in person with all of the major events. We got correspondents from across the country. So we have the same mission, but we're bigger. We're on a bigger platform. Real talk straight from the field. But we can't do this by ourselves. We are looking for folks to either assist us with one-time donations or become a monthly donor. So if you're ready to be a part of the next chapter, head over to our website, www.ckasafeproject.org, and click the donate tab. The game is changing. Let's lead this charge together. So on behalf of our cavalcade of stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. Also seen on the Cascade Sports Network. Shout out to Kansas City, Missouri. And we will see you on the sidelines. Until next time, take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on the X platform at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Keith Adams and the CKA Save Project on social media at CKA Save Project. For more information about the CKA Save Project, visit them on the web at www.cksaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches podcast.